So you need money for deals, but you've got no money. Jonathan and I are going to talk about how we both have raised millions and millions of dollars via what is called private money. We're going to give you some of the keys that we have done to raise private money so you too can understand that it is possible. Jonathan, if you were to guesstimate over your career, how much private money have you raised over the last decades?
I don't know. At this point, probably close to 20 million, I'd say.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
peg Olivia and I probably half that, maybe 8 to 10 million. So again, we're talking roughly 30 million bucks in private money raised. So again, we've been doing this for a while. So Jonathan, when you look at that 20 million raised, what were some of the keys at the beginning to make that even possible?
Well, it's really what helped me in the beginning is what continues to help me today. And it's really all about building relationships with people, right? The first people who invested with me were people that I knew very well and I had built, decades of trust with. So when I started a new venture, they were ready to take a chance with me. And over time, as that has grown, it's still been basically all about relationships. Now, at this point in my career, it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to have like a one-on-one relationship with somebody where I know them really well. Uh, my relationships, I want to say, are a little more one-sided at this point because I've become an authority. People know me, people hear about me. I have a reputation, but
Mhm.
it's still about that relationship, right? About um, what people think of you as a person and what they think about your reputation, what kind of reputation you have. That is really the critical factor. And the more relationships you can build, the better relationships you can build, the easier you'll find it to raise money when you need to
Yeah.
raise money.
Yeah, it's really funny when I think about the private money Olivia and I have raised, and again, we'll just call it 10 million for a round number. I don't think it's quite that, but certainly over eight. I've actually never asked for any of it.
Mm.
I've never had to do a raise per se because all I've done is I've just documented what Olivia and I were doing, right? And I didn't document it because I wanted money. I documented really as a selfish way to look back in decades because when I got started in real estate in 2001 and then I wrote my book One Rental at a Time, I realized I didn't look backwards, right? I didn't enjoy the journey. And, my first raise was kind of in 2010, 11, 12. Well, I wrote for a website, one wealthbuildingpro.com, and all I did was write about the houses we were buying. And again, we were using our own capital. So it was slow, right? We'd buy one, fix it up, we'd burr the money out, we'd do it again, we'd do it again. And right around the third or the fourth house, buddies of mine like you in my network in the Silicon Valley were like, dude, I see what you're doing here. Uh, I've got money, over here making nothing. I want to be a part of this. So at the time, I was paying 10 to 12% interest. And it was real short term. It was 6, 8 month money because I would burr out to cheaper capital. And then we did it again after I retired. And frankly, I had more money myself. So I wasn't interested in paying her 10 or 12%. And my investors, they didn't want 10 or 12%. They wanted some of the equity. So what we did is we created a 6 and 20 program where I'd pay 6% interest for the duration, again, typically 6 to 8 months, but then they got 20% of the upside. So all Olivia and I had to do for 56 flips was fund the repairs. All 100% purchase was borrowed. And then we gave
Wow.
20% of the upside. So that's how we flipped 56 properties in, I don't know what it was, 30 months, something like that, 28 months. So again, I think you have to be comfortable documenting the process, documenting the learnings so people can read it, see what you're doing, see that you're getting better, and then they reach out and say how they can help. That's what worked for me twice.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a, first of all, I really like that. That's a really interesting model for private money. I like that. When you said private money, like all the private money that I mentioned is all equity that I've raised, right?
Mhm.
So it's doesn't
Yeah.
doesn't include
First,
the bank
for
loans
me,
and
it was
stuff, but
debt.
yeah.
Yeah.
So as everybody knows, debt is cheaper than equity, right? So
Amen. Yep.
it's, it's hard to raise. You can't do apartment buildings all debt. Like the debt will crush you. Will crush you. You can't do it. So
Oh
you
yeah,
have to raise
pay
equity.
12% on an
But
apartment. That would be bad.
yeah, or even but even it's funny. I used to model this out. Like even paying like 5%. If you're 100% financed, with an amortizing loan, you
Yeah,
can't do it,
that
right?
doesn't work. Yeah, yeah.
So the but where was I going with this? Just forgot my train of thought. My own
You were
tangent.
borrowing equity. Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's raising equity. Oh no, what I like about your model. So I like the that you're doing the 6 and 20 thing. I found that really interesting. I don't know. My point just like completely evaporated. I can't remember what it
that's
was I
okay.
was going to say. Oh well, it'll come back to me.
Yeah. So again, I think the whole beauty of private money for me has been um
Oh, I know I'm sorry. I know what I was
oh,
going to say. Yeah. So the what you did too is just like such a classic way of building a business, right? It's like taking people along for the journey and almost like not even necessarily even intending to
mm-mm.
raise private money or build a business, but it's like documenting the journey is such a powerful way of bringing people, in our last segment, we were talking about the story, right? And
Yep.
how important the story was. If you're like involving people in the story as you're creating it, it really is a way of getting people invested in what you're doing. So
Yeah.
if you have uh, first I was going to say if you have a long time horizon, but even if you don't, even if you have a short time horizon, like if you're trying to build a business in real estate right now, doing something where you're publicly documenting your journey, whether it's podcasting, YouTube, writing a blog, whatever it is, posting on LinkedIn, all of it, it all works to get people invested in what you're doing, and it helps build that relationship where they trust you because they see you doing it every day.
Yeah. And again, the key of documenting your journey is it can't all be roses and sunshine. There
Yeah,
there
yeah.
are poison ivy and slips and misses. Just document the process. People know mistakes happen,
Well, not
but
only
be
that, but they
authentic.
love they love
Yeah.
reading about the mistakes, right? I mean, that's like what they
It's
like the
like,
most.
ouch.
And
Oh,
yeah,
that
and
hurt.
yeah, and but not only that, like the thing that I think so many people they get wrapped up in imposter syndrome, and then part of that is thinking that they have to be perfect, and then they see the way that people are posting on social media, and everything is always rosy all the time. And what just think about though how you relate to people. Like if you talk to somebody, it's always good news all the time. After a while, you start to disbelieve them, right? You think, well, this isn't reality. Nobody has good news all the time. The thing about documenting your losses also, or your, the hard things you went through is that let's just say you're out there raising money, right? If you're raising money and it's all good news, all good news, all good news. At some point people start to discount the good news that you're telling them or like why you think this is a great deal or whatever. On the other hand, if you've told them like the struggles you went through, the losses you had, the times you screwed up, and you're open about that, then when you tell them some really good news, they're just more likely to believe it because they
Yeah.
they know that you are
You're not
truthful,
hiding
right?
anything. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not exaggerating because you also let them see the times it didn't go right. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think the key to raising private money is being that authentic. It's consistency, and again, it's documenting, and it's really funny. When we raised those first 3 or 4 million bucks, it was writing, and I'm a horrible writer, but it's the only way I could. And again, I was doing it selfishly for myself, and then that became the greatest lead gen ever. Then I quit, I retire, we start doing this YouTube thing. I think 10 or 15% of my first 1,000 videos were me walking through buildings. And again, to your point, I would walk through them at acquisition. I'd walk through them after demo. I'd walk through them after we, got the walls up or the bathroom done. And then I'd walk through them final. So people could go through and watch the entire journey. And again, the other thing I did is I always named the house. I would never put the address. It's like, here's the gumball house, or here's the roach house, or here's the whatever house. So people could search for that and they could see the whole journey and then give them the numbers. And right, I would always give the numbers day one. Here's what I expect. Here we're at in the middle, and here we are at the end. And, most of the time my numbers were low. Just tell them and then tell them what you learned and tell them the surprises. And it's really fun just documenting what's happening. And I didn't edit any videos. They were all one take, nothing fancy, not on a phone with a gimbal, simple.
yeah, and I think, I mean that's just giving people the full picture is really what they want to see, right? And then once you raise money, it's also really critically important to like give bad news to your investors right away, right? If people, I used to feel this way too, like I don't want to give them bad news, they're going to hate me, right? Or they're going to be upset. It's actually not true. They just want to know what's going on. And
Yep.
if you have even like a hint of bad news, it's always good just to like put it out there, let them know right away, and then they'll just process it. And then, but they appreciate the credibility. And then when you can tell them the turnaround story, then they believe you. They don't think that you're full of it, right? So
Yeah.
it's really important just to communicate with people. It's all it's all part and parcel of the same thing, just building the relationships, being credible,
Yeah.
being vulnerable, and this is how you build trust.
Yeah, I would tell people because again, a lot of people hear us talking, they see that we've got decades of experience. So like, yeah, it's easy for you to. But I want to tell people that at least when I was writing the blog, because again, nobody knew me at that point. I want to say that I got my first phone call asking if I needed money probably 6 or 8 months
Mm.
after my first article. I only think I had three. I think I had three. I might have been working on my fourth story. It doesn't take a long time. I think a lot of people think about documenting and like, oh, that's a 2 year thing. I don't have that time. I'm like, if you do it right and completely, it could be months, maybe quarters before you start getting those phone calls.
Yeah. And I think also like another really important thing here is that like, so what you did was you started with your own capital, right?
Hmm.
That's now obviously everyone doesn't have the capital to start with, but if you, this is why like when people go out there and say start big, right? Or Grant Cardone, start with 32 units or you're a loser or whatever. I mean, that is just really counterproductive for so many people
Oh,
because
agreed.
because it puts so much pressure on you to find money off the bat, and then you're doing your first deal and you're dealing with the property stuff, but then you're also like worried about the investors the whole time,
Yeah.
and there's
It's
like
just,
so much pressure
ah,
on you, and like why would you want to deal with that? Like do it, start where you can. I always tell people with apartment buildings, start with the biggest property you can buy by yourself. If that's
exactly.
2 units, start there, right? I'll teach you how to do the big deals if you want to do them, but I really think it's great to start with something small, make your mistakes there, right?
Yes.
And if you don't have the money for that, like maybe partner with one or two friends. But don't go out there and like think you're try to do a syndication off the bat with a big deal, multi-millions of
Yeah.
dollars, because it's really hard. And you'll also miss out on this great opportunity, like I said, to do it and then document it and
Yeah.
build a newsletter, build a website, build whatever it is, just get that message out there that here's what I'm doing, here's how it worked, and then go out and talk about it with people. When you meet people at a party, tell them what you're doing. Like that's how you build the business.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Again, private money is out there. It's not that hard to get. I would say it's harder to raise today than 2 years ago, but that's a good thing. There's a lot of pretenders, a lot of losses coming in that vintage a couple of years ago. But yeah, I still could raise millions of dollars in private money if I found the deals and the opportunity. Again, folks, I'm not looking to do that. The 6 and 20 program has been down for 2 or 3 years. Don't call me asking for that. It's a program that's over, but you never know. It might come back. Jonathan, where can people find you?
So LinkedIn is a great place to connect with me. Always happy to get requests from people on this channel. Uh, Posting pretty much every day, commenting all the time. It's a great way to build a relationship. And if you'd like to learn from me, you can go to my school group, which is school.com/AIC, which is short for Apartment Investors Club.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan.
You're welcome.